Okay, let's dive right into this. We've all heard the story, right? It's literally one of the most famous accounts in human history. The epic tale of feeding 5,000 people with just a meager little lunch. Well, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a fresh, absolutely radical look at a story that has fascinated humanity for 2 millennia. And we're going to explore whether we've been looking at it the wrong way this entire time.
Think back for a second to how you first heard that age-old story of the 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. I mean, we're almost always taught to view it as pure, supernatural magic. Poof, bread just multiplying out of thin air to feed a massive, hungry crowd. But what if I told you we might have been completely misunderstanding this text for thousands of years? You have to ask yourself, was the greatest miracle actually just a magic trick, or was it something deeply human and, honestly, maybe even more powerful?
So the crucial point here is the contrast. Traditionally, we're taught this one specific view, a literal, supernatural multiplication of food that completely breaks the laws of physics. But there is a totally different paradigm we can explore. We're talking about a profound shift in human nature, a literal revolution of the heart. To really grasp this revolutionary perspective, we need to meet a fascinating thinker who dared to read the text differently. Enter Hanbalg Byun Chan-rin. Now, he wasn't just your standard theologian. He was a visionary Korean thinker who looked at these ancient texts through the lens of Northeast Asian spirituality. It's sometimes called Pungyu, which basically means looking at the deep flowing connections between humans, nature, and the divine. He acted almost like a codebreaker for spiritual DNA. Instead of just accepting those literal translations that relied on supernatural magic, he dug deeper. He looked at the cultural and spiritual metaphors hidden right beneath the surface of the text. Byun Chan-rin basically argued that we shouldn't view this scripture as a literal history book or, a record of ancient magic tricks. Instead, he saw it as a spiritual code just waiting to be cracked. It's like a giant puzzle. To him, the events were deeply symbolic, carrying these really profound messages for how human beings should live together in a community. It's not about manipulating matter like some sci-fi movie. It's about transforming people from the inside out. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Byun actually decoded these symbols. Instead of a literal young boy offering his lunch, Byun translates the boy, metaphorically, as a reborn, innocent spirit. We're talking about someone with a pure, entirely unselfish attitude. And the 5 loaves and 2 fishes? Get this. He decodes this as representing 7 wealthy individuals who chose to act as community stewards. 7 people willingly giving up their private hoarding for the greater good of everyone else. Okay, picture this scene. You're out in the wilderness. 5,000 hungry people are staring back at you. The realization we're coming to here completely changes the entire landscape of the story. It wasn't a magic trick that fed that massive crowd. The actual climax of this story is something much quieter, but infinitely more difficult to achieve in human society. As Byun Chan-rin so powerfully asked, is there any greater miracle than the miracle that changes a person's heart? I mean, really think about that. The true miracle wasn't bread falling from the sky. No way. The true miracle was fundamentally selfish, hoarding people experiencing a total transformation of character. It was wealthy people letting go of their private wealth to make sure absolutely nobody in their community went hungry. It was a complete and total victory over human greed. 5,000. Just look at that staggering number for a second. Imagine trying to feed 5,000 people today. That's a massive logistical nightmare. Doing it back then, out in a desolate place, it really underscores the incredible scale of the community that was successfully nourished. And according to Byun, they weren't fed by magic. They were fed through radical voluntary sharing, which was all ignited by those initial 7 stewards who stepped forward first. And this brings us to what Byun coined the new economic view. It's defined as a revolution of the heart, where individuals voluntarily share their private wealth for the collective good. Actually, scratch that. If you want to think about it in relatable, modern terms, it's basically the ultimate ancient form of crowdfunding. But instead of funding, say, a new tech gadget or an indie movie, they were funding human survival out of deep empathy and community spirit, with absolutely zero coercion. And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world implications of his view. When you apply this today, we are talking about breaking down old economic models that are based entirely on selfishness. It's about actively ending the hoarding of resources. It champions voluntary community sharing. And ultimately, it's about healing human greed. It's shifting the entire community from a mindset of what's mine is mine to what's mine is ours if you're in need. So what does this all mean for us right now? Well, it means we don't need literal magic to solve modern inequality. When we look at poverty, hunger, and those massive wealth gaps in our modern society, it is so easy to feel helpless. It feels like we need some supernatural intervention just to fix it. But Bjorn's interpretation is incredibly empowering. It teaches us that the solution is already within us. It just requires this exact radical shift in our collective mindset. It's amazing how a subtle shift in perspective really can change the world. Byun Chan-rin's interpretation shows us that heaven's economy isn't some mystical, far-off concept that's just reserved for the afterlife. Not at all. It is simply a revolution of the human heart occurring right here, right now. It's people freely and joyfully choosing to share what they have with those who have less. It's literally creating a paradise on earth through our own actions. Let's move to and see how this builds. Looking at this imagery, it perfectly represents the quiet power of human potential. When we stop looking up at the sky for magical solutions and start looking around at each other with an innocent, open heart, that reborn spirit we talked about, we realize something huge. We realize that we already possess all the resources we could possibly need to care for one another. Which brings us to our final question for this explainer. We don't have magic wands. We can't just snap our fingers and multiply our groceries. But we do have hearts. We have empathy. We have resources. And we have community. Byun Chan-rin showed us that the greatest miracle isn't some disruption of the laws of physics. It's a disruption of our own greed. So, what miracle of voluntary sharing can you start in your community today?